Being a parent is hard. Being the parent of an athlete, especially developing athletes, is even harder. So this is the ultimate guide to parenting athletes. Today, we're going to get better. Hey, welcome to the channel. If you're new here and you're a parent, a coach, or even an athlete, and you're looking for the best mental performance tools, tactics, and advice, then start right now by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell below. And speaking of parenting athletes, I also have a free gift for you. If you're a parent and one of your athletes could use a boost in their preparation, could use a boost in their ability to mentally perform in these big moments that maybe they've struggled with in the past, I want you to go to trainwithperk.com/free guide. What you're gonna find there is a 100% free guide. It includes 3 easy to install little things into your athlete's mental preparation before their next big moment that is absolutely going to help. Again, that's trainwithperk.com/free guide. All right, so this guide is really broken up into do's and don'ts when it comes to parenting athletes. Now, I've packed a ton of stuff into this video. I figured this would be the most enjoyable way to consume the content. It's also gonna have a lot of stuff in it. So if you need to grab something to drink, a coffee, a cold beverage, do so now. Otherwise, let's get started. So the first do is to allow your athletes to choose whatever sport they want to choose. Now listen, I get it. Most parents want their athlete to play a sport that either they played or a sport that at least the parents are interested in or that they even enjoy watching. But unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work out that way, and we have to be supportive. You, as the parent, have to be supportive of that decision. The first don't is don't try to relive your glory days through your athletes. Just because you wanted to be or you were a very successful athlete who had a great career, your athlete isn't your clone. And that means that they may very well not have the same level of success that you did. And what's even more likely is that their path through their sport is going to be probably fundamentally different than the path that you took. Do consistently show interest and support in your athlete's sport. Have a conversation about it, because this shows your child, your athlete, that you're both interested in it and that you're also available for support for their sport journey. One of the biggest complaints that I hear from parents is that your athlete just won't talk to you about their sport. And the biggest reasons for this is probably either A, how those conversations went in the past, and maybe they didn't necessarily feel that there was a ton of support, or maybe in those conversations, they just didn't feel like you as the parent had much interest in that sport. So especially very early on when an athlete is starting out in the sport, we need to be very aware of how we're approaching those conversations. Are we being supportive? And are we at least showing some interest in what they're saying, giving them our full undivided attention? When you talk to your athletes, don't focus on scoring, statistics, or any form of results. These are great accomplishments, but these accomplishments aren't repeatable, which means that they're outside of your athlete's control. For example, they could play great and lose, but if you only ever focus on statistics or winning or the results that they get, well, then that's what they're gonna focus on too. And even if they play great and they they invested in all the things that were in their control and they put out a great performance, but they didn't get the result, well, then they're gonna see that as a failure. And they're gonna see that as a failure because they failed to get the results that you have only ever talked about. Because if you only focus on, in the conversations that you have with the athlete, about the results that they get, well, then the underlying message that you're sending to those athletes, or that you're sending to your athlete, is that your athlete is only worthy to you if they get those results. Now, I know that this isn't true, but that isn't always how the athlete sees it. Do teach your athlete to focus on things that are within their control. And these are things that are generally repeatable with effort. For example, reinforce things like when you see them have a great attitude or move on quickly from a mistake, or that they appear just very focused out there. These are the things that we should be reinforcing, because these are the things that your athlete can repeat time and time again. And if they do that, if they do invest in things that are in their control because of the way that you've taught them to, they're going to be more consistent because they're investing in things that are in their control, and they're investing in positioning themselves to have success. And it's not based on whether or not they get the great result. A great performance isn't based on whether or not they get a great result. A great performance is, did they invest in the process of becoming great? And when you do this, when you do teach them to focus on these repeatable things that are within their control, you are essentially teaching them the process of becoming great at something. Don't make your athletes specialize in one sport too young. This is becoming a widespread problem in that we're seeing parents having their athletes specialize in their sport at a younger and younger and younger age because of the perceived pressures and the perceived demands that are being placed on them. Now, this is leading to overuse injuries, but this is also leading to stunting their athletic development. Especially young athletes need to be focused on developing athleticism, and they don't get all of those athletic traits, especially at an early age, from playing just one sport. For example, the athletic traits that you get from playing baseball are very different than the athletic traits that you get from playing basketball. And the more concerning issue with specialization at a younger and younger age is that this is leading to burnout in young athletes, burnout in 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and that's leading to even more mental health issues down the road. A good rule of thumb that I've given to parents and that I've collaborated with coaches on, especially coaches that are doing this the right way, is that an athlete should really specialize after their freshman year of high school. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to certain sports like gymnastics and figure skating, where the population of those sports is much, much younger. But let's also remember those athletes exit those sports of figure skating and gymnastics also at a young age. So let's just use a little bit of common sense here. But generally, for a lot of the major sports where they could be playing this sport into their 20s and even, late 20s, specializing too young is a big problem. A good rule of thumb is to have them specialize after their freshman year of high school. All right, parents, another critical do for you is to remain calm and composed in intense moments. You are your athlete's most powerful model for how they model behavior, who they learn from. And if you fly off the handle and lose your cool and show that you are being controlled by your emotions in these intense moments, how do you feel like they're probably going to learn to respond in those situations? And we know that responding that way within your sport based on how you feel and being so controlled by those emotions certainly doesn't lead to strong, consistent performances. Don't blame coaches, the refs, or even the weather for your athlete's lack of success. Blaming others teaches a lack of accountability, because where there is blame, there is very little, if any, space left to learn about what they could have done better or adjustments that they could have made to overcome in that situation, because odds are they're going to face that situation again. Do use failure as a teaching moment. Making a mistake and failing is inevitable. It's outside of their control, because if they could control making a mistake or failing, why would they ever fail? Learn to help your athlete find something that they can learn from in that moment, as well as something that they can work on in the future that's going to better prepare them the next time that challenging situation comes up again. I get a lot of questions from parents about how can I install a growth mindset within my athletes? And that right there is exactly how you do it. When they make a mistake, help them try and be objective, learn from the mistake, help them invest in something that they can work on, so that way the next time that situation comes up, they're going to be better prepared to handle it. Don't allow your athlete to engage in self-defeating, self-deprecating, negative self-talk. This is an action that they take based on how they feel. And here's the thing, they are absolutely allowed to feel however it is that they feel in a given situation. What matters is what they do, what they choose to do. And negative self-talk is a choice that they're engaging in. So if you want to help your athletes in this situation, help them choose to take a more productive stance when it comes to how do you talk to yourself. And I did an entire video on this. I'll leave the link above, talking specifically about how can we improve our self-talk within our athletes. Do help your athletes see that the only failure is avoiding situations that they might fail. Fear of failure and perfectionism has been running rampant among many of the athletes that I work with, and this generally leads to just avoiding situations where they might fail and then thus experience all those hard feelings of failure. So you need to reinforce that the only failure is the unwillingness to fail, because failure isn't fatal. It's an opportunity to grow. Don't treat your child differently after a win or a loss or a failure or a success. Now, this might seem obvious to some of you parents, but many parents need to be great at one specific skill: self-awareness. Self-awareness is simply understanding the impact that you have on yourself, as well as the impact that you have on the world around you, on your environment. And many times parents are often unaware that they just act a little bit differently. Their tone's a little bit different. Their vibe, the energy that they're bringing to the conversation with the athlete is just different. We need to be, and you need to be as a parent, hyper aware of how you communicate and how you behave around your athletes based on whether they did really well or whether they struggled. Teach your athlete to communicate with the coach. This is a critical skill that has to be developed amongst younger developing athletes, and really any athlete at all, because the fact is that this is not going to be the last person of authority that they're going to have in their life. They're going to have other coaches, college professors, bosses, plenty of other authority figures. And one of the things that I see, unfortunately, is athletes who shy away from speaking to the coaches, or parents who talk to the coach for the athlete. This needs to stop. Parents, you need to help your athletes learn how to communicate with people who hold positions of authority over them. This is an incredibly critical skill for their sport, but it's probably even a more important life skill. Building onto that previous point, don't villainize the coach. It doesn't matter how bad the coach is or your opinion of the coach, unless of course they're doing something unlawful, unethical, or immoral. You need to work with your athlete about how to help them deal with it, how to help them cope with it. Because again, the fact is, this is probably not going to be the last bad coach or bad boss or tough teacher that they're going to have in their life. So you need to help them work through this process, help them understand their options, help them come up with strategies to resolve the situation. And maybe at times you go through that process and the only resolution is that you need to transition to a different opportunity. That in and of itself is an incredibly critical process that a young person can learn. Do create goals with your athletes and make sure that these are process goals, not goals based on results. In addition to that, sit down with them and help them come up with their own standard. What standard are they going to hold themselves accountable to, and what level of commitment do they need to establish for themselves? This is a very powerful exercise to do with any athlete, because you're helping them come up with a standard that they are going to set for themselves based on the goals that they want to achieve. And they understand that I need to hold myself to this standard because this is what's going to be necessary to move myself towards this goal. And the key part here for the parent is that when it comes time for the parent to hold the athlete accountable to these standards, or this set of standards, or this level of commitment, you're not holding them accountable to what you told them that they needed to do. You're holding the athlete accountable to what they said that they needed to do in the first place. And this is a fundamentally more important, more powerful process that you can engage with your athlete. Don't avoid holding your athlete accountable. Never avoid accountability. This is an incredibly important skill that an athlete needs to develop, because when they fail, and there's going to be goals that they don't achieve, when they fail, all you do is you simply sit down with them and you say, hey, where in your process, where did you go wrong in terms of the level of commitment that you were supposed to hold yourself to, or the things that you agreed upon that, and again, they probably didn't do them. Where did you go wrong in that process? Because this opens up a conversation for, this is why you failed, this is what went wrong, but it also provides a much clearer path moving forward. All right, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, a thumbs up button, leave me a comment, tell me what you think, which do or don't was most impactful for you. Also make sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. And of course, make sure that you get over there and you get that free guide, trainwithperk.com/free guide for 3 easy to install tips for your athlete to help them better prepare for their next big moment. I'll see you next time.